Gee, that was some end to what's been a gripping series, a gripping test match. We're still not done. It will be done tomorrow, but with the wicket of Dean Elgar, with the emotions and the tempers flaring from the Indian camp, with the weather rising too at Newlands, who's to call this test match one more time? You still think, though, after what South Africa did in the second test, that with just 111 to get and 8 wickets in hand, it should be their game. But who knows? Funny things have happened. Dean Elgar's gone, and Sanjay Manjrekar and Daryll Cullinan will look back at another terrific day of Test match cricket where Rishabh Pant lit up Newlands with 100 of India's 198 runs in their third innings. Plenty to therefore look back upon. But what does that wicket do to the balance of the Test match where it was looking so easy, Sanjay Manjrekar, for South Africa, for Keegan Peterson? What does that wicket do? How does this Test match stand at stumps on day three?
See, I went on record yesterday after the game saying that 200 should be enough, considering the pedigree and the track record of the South African batting lineup, notwithstanding that run chase in the last test match. But that partnership, I mean, it was a huge one. And both of them, ideal men to take South Africa closer. With Elgar gone, the match is open again, but you've got to say far too many runs added by Peterson and Elgar, which will make life a little easier for the underconfident batters to follow. So slightly, I think South Africa favourites at this stage, despite the wicket of Elgar, but can't rule out an Indian comeback.
Daryll, same question.
I'm not going to stick my neck out here. I think it could go either way. Let's be honest. We've been calling for or expecting a collapse from either side at some stage, particularly South Africa's batting lineup. But I favour South Africa simply because, as we saw in the Indian innings, as that ball got softer, yes, we saw some lateral movement and some uneven bounce, but it definitely did mean that batting was a little bit easier. So it's about that first hour. South Africa can get through that first hour, not lose too many wickets, perhaps another one. It's got to mean that things are in their favour.
Okay, how easy is Keegan Peterson making things look now, Daryl? Looks like a different pitch than the one that Virat Kohli laboured his way to 29 of 143. But Keegan Peterson looks a serious player suddenly.
He looks a very accomplished player. You know what I've enjoyed about his batting is the way that he's used his feet to Ashwin. Now, in recent times, very quickly, we did a South African series in Pakistan, and the 170th over of their test matches, the second test, second innings, Markram left his crease for the first time on good batting wickets. So for me, it was a breath of fresh air to see this guy happy to even just a little nudge, but he was happy to use his feet. So that was very encouraging. But let's be honest as well. I thought India, again, have made it a little bit too easy. And watching that, I remember the words, we spoke about it, Sanjay raised it, where's Ishan Sharma? They haven't been able to, not even Ashwin, they haven't been able to hold an end up. And as a result, Peterson has been allowed to play, and they've been scoring both sides of the wicket, which is an indication that they're not quite back in those line and lengths, which we saw so very good in the first innings.
Sanjay?
You need batters like Keegan Peterson to just put everything in proper perspective. We often talk about a bowling attack and the pitch depending on how the action is unfolded. So right through the series, when you've seen Peterson bat, the pitch has looked easier. The bowling has looked manageable. So that is the compliment that you want to pay somebody like Keegan Peterson, that this is classical test batting, very decisive with his footwork, the old adage of moving your feet as per the length of the ball, no major trigger movement, no standing 2 feet outside the crease. He's playing the old-fashioned way, and things suddenly look very simple. And I'm glad he's part of this series because there's been no other batter who has looked as composed and as assured. And that allows us to look at pitch conditions and the quality of bowling attack of both sides in the right perspective, thanks to Peterson.
Okay, I'd like for both of you to weigh in on one of the theories and opinions and observations that we've seen when we compare the Indian bowlers to the South African bowlers, that the reason the South Africans seem to get more out of it is generally there's more height to the South African bowling, and what is a fast and bouncy surface, they trouble India more. It did seem like India had to work a lot harder for their runs. India's bowlers, as good as they are, perhaps have a different method of attack and therefore aren't as effective. Thoughts on that, Sanjay?
Look, South African bowling attack to right towards the end of the series have gone back to what they are really naturally suited to do, which is about hitting the deck. I mean, that's how South Africa have dominated in South Africa on a skillful pitches, not by pitching the ball up and getting it to swing, a la Jimmy Anderson. I mean, Dale Steyn used to do it, but most South African bowlers were hit the deck kind of bowlers, and that is what you saw today. Rabada in this test match hit the deck a little more. Ngidi was brilliant in the second inning. The venom was back. So to answer your question, when you have bowlers hitting the deck and when you have a pitch where there is lateral movement, so what the batters have to contend with is lateral movement plus bounce. I don't think there is a pace element as much. Nobody's in the 145 for South Africa. But movement and bounce is more difficult than just movement. And that's where I think South Africa have been slightly better with the natural gifts that they have through their body frames.
Daryl?
I'd love to see a pitch map of both attacks so far. And my thinking is that I think South Africa have maintained those good lines and lengths. That has always been the secret to bowling in South Africa. We've had pace bowlers. I agree with Sanjay. There was a point I was going to raise as well. No one's operated above 140 consistently on either side. But I think South Africa, compared to the Indian attack, have running those effort balls have been better. But I think by and large, they've been consistently better in terms of the lines and lengths. What was clear, Virat Kohli was never going to get a drive, and Virat wasn't prepared to take on the short ball. They were more better, I thought, consistently in terms of letting the pitch do the work as well. And they were able to, Willie Field and Rabada bowled well at times in partnerships. Janssen got wickets as well. That exaggerated bounce allowed batsmen, well, it gave him a lot of leeway in terms of batsmen not being able to get at it. But surely as well, India battled with the bounce, not the pace, and the lateral movement. And that has been, in my opinion, their undoing in the series. Not enough of them have stood up and been able to show a technique to be able to cope with it. Virat showed, yes, he struggled, but he showed with good disciplines. Keegan Peterson has shown, Temba Bavuma has shown, with good classic test match batting disciplines outside of stump, you can occupy the crease. Yes, you're going to get one, but there's just been too many Indian batsmen who haven't even been able to occupy the crease.
So what was different about Rishabh Pant then, Sanjay?
See, again, we've got to look at South African bowling attack, why we praise and we are trying to say that they were slightly better than India. I mean, this is a very unique Indian batting lineup. So you've got to look at that from that perspective, that the South African bowlers were bowling to batters who weren't willing to take them on. All of them finding ways to survive, some playing like, their whole career is now dependent on one inning. So this is a very unique batting lineup with the failures of the whole in this test match. It's just added to the woes. You've got Virat Kohli scoring now at a strike rate of 20, faced over 140 balls. So tentative Indian batting lineup, perhaps making the South African bowling attack look a little better than it is. Rishabh Pant, in the meanwhile, plays in that fashion that he does. So what I've realized that in difficult conditions, difficult with, again, a little bit of a question mark because some batters are making the pitch look easier. Either you've got to be a Keegan Peterson with the right attitude, defense, technique, fundamentals, or you've got to have the audacity and the talent of Rishabh Pant. A lot of the batters on either side are caught in between. Markram is another example. So that's what this series has been. It's mostly been about batters looking for the right balance and looking for confidence, really.
Daryl?
Well, when you've seen players, and he took on the short ball, the best players that I've seen come here, you're going to get it. But he was the one, he took it on and he actually made it look fairly comfortable. Yes, the ball was a bit older, we know that, but still, where's the rest? And I like Sanjay's point about, had they again been caught between shouldn't I take on the short ball, but take it on properly. But Rishabh Pant, the moment that he did, it was almost, South Africa, that's not kind of working. You then get them to pitch it up, try and bowl it full or try something else. But I thought it was a brilliant innings. I have a confession to make. I've seen him highlights of his batting in the past. This is the first time I've actually sat down and watched the guy play. He's a serious talent. He is a serious talent. And Sanjay, I can fully appreciate the point that you made, that Rishabh Pant plays in Rishabh Pant's way. And put everything else aside, it's been the knock of the series so far.
Yes, you've got to look at every innings that is played in his test career. This is the guy I followed very closely. He got his first 100 in Australia, in England, in a match that was almost like a dead rubber. So that was his first 100 at Oval along with KL Rahul. Then got a couple of 90s against West Indies at home easily. He's got actually 3 90s and 189 along with 4 Test 100s. So this cannot be a fluke. And he's already played one all-time great Indian innings. That was 89 not out to win the Test match at Brisbane. There was 100 against England at Ahmedabad, another great innings. And if India win this Test match, this will go down as another great Indian innings. So there is something unique about this guy. A lot of criticism for the kind of shot that he played and got out to Rabada in the last Test match. He played the same shot against Olivier when he was 14 or 18. Smacked it for 4. So this is a guy who is different. Virendra Sehwag was different. Rishabh Pant is even more different. But look at the exploits. I mean, he ended up getting 100. So that knock, the how much of it was, the total was just about, he scored more than half the runs for the side. And the other important point is how unselfish was that innings. He was only focused on prolonging that innings, not worried about getting 100. He's got out in the 90s a couple of times. He's got 3 90s and an 89. So this is a guy who plays to win, plays for his team, and that was amply evident today. A lot of big name batters would have quickly got 100 and then would have decided, okay, now let me see what I can do. He was constantly thinking of just one goal, to extend the innings and get as many runs as possible. It's a shame that Shami and Bumrah played the way they did with Pant at the other end.
Yeah, fair enough. If I am to just break down the Virat Kohli innings, we're seeing so much about how well South Africa bowled him. Sanjay makes a point, Daryll, on how perhaps the rest of the Indian batting wasn't willing to take South Africa's bowlers on. But could they have, with the way South Africa bowled? Did you see scoring opportunities missed almost in what was an unusually hard-working, laborious sort of innings from Virat Kohli? Daryll?
He's come off a lean period, as we know. He played well in the first innings, let's be honest. But should he have taken it on? Look, pulling a guy like Janssen or making him change his lengths with that steep bounce, but perhaps one or two of the others. But we just saw him, he was in absolute pure survival mode. Whereas there may have been moments where he could have looked to take the game, try and put the pressure back on the batsmen, on the bowlers. But he seemed to just be stuck in that sort of moment. Although he batted for a long period, he did add, if India are to win the match, he did add some sort of stability to the innings. Had he gone early, who knows what would have happened next. But whilst he was there, it was taking the game forward. But at least some sort of partnership time at the crease developed. Someone else was scoring sort of at the other end. So whilst he was the quieter batter compared to Pant, at least he was spending time with him at the crease. But I think the only guy that can really answer what's going on there is Virat himself. But I can't help thinking the Virat of old would have perhaps looked to change the bowler's length and taken on the short ball more, and then somehow put the pressure back on them. But it was uncharacteristic sort of innings. I mean, Sanjay alluded to strike rate of 20, and then you see the others going at a run at ball. Quite remarkable.
Sanjay, anything to add on the Kohli innings?
See, Daryll is absolutely right. His long vigil in the first innings, 79, was crucial, valuable. Second innings as well occupied some time. So from the team point of view, when the batting is in complete disarray, there is a value that Virat Kohli is adding. But when you have to just look singularly at Virat Kohli, the great batter that he is, the Indian captain, he's going through one of his most difficult phases of his entire cricketing career. He's lost his captaincy in white ball cricket. There's been some controversy around that. Plus the fact that this is the first time I'm seeing Virat Kohli being, not consumed, but self-doubts have started creeping in. We saw it during the IPL as well, the way he played in some of those matches. I never thought this guy will be underconfident. And you said an unusual innings, but this has been the pattern in the last 18 months when he's faced more than 100 balls, whether it's been in New Zealand or against New Zealand, in England, and here. The strike rate has been about 40, and now it's gone down to 20, 140 ball innings. So he's going through a phase. I think he has to start looking at his own batting And Rahul Dravid, as I said, has to help him. He's got to go back to the drawing board. That's for the future. In this test match, he's made some contribution, but Virat Kohli himself would know that, he could easily, have got more runs consuming the same number of balls. I'll just give you one little point about Virat Kohli getting out to that ball outside of some wide ball that he tries to cover drive. The old-fashioned square drive, Daryll, is a much better option to a ball that is wide and overplayed. That same length delivery, Ashwin went back and punched it for 4. So it's about how a batter reacts to a particular delivery. Virat Kohli goes on the front foot, leaves those balls, but some of the other batters can actually punch those off the back foot and get runs. Keegan Peterson would do that. So all that has to be now looked at, because Virat Kohli is going through a really tough phase of his career.
Doesn't help then, of course, when you have two batters around you that are just not getting out of this rut. So Pujara and Rahane, their series comes to an end with bat. Now there is some reaction on social media that Rahane couldn't have done much about that ball. Sanjay, would you echo that, or is it just one of those that you don't want to get when you're in the worst possible form of your life? And what now for Pujara and Rahane? Do we have a verdict on them?
Yeah, somebody said he got a brute of a delivery, and I say that he's been getting a lot of brutes of deliveries in the last 3-4 years. So it's a combination of both, good delivery plus, Ajinkya Rahane's form. And I remember we were talking about him getting a 50 and he's back in form. And I said, hold on. Let's see whether he's back in form with a 50, and the next 2 innings failed again. So it's a confirmation of the lean pad that he's been having. I've said it for a long time that he needs to really go back and, maybe play first-class cricket and hopefully get his mojo back. I would not give Rahane another innings, test innings. Pujara has a stronger case in my books. But nothing about Ajinkya Rahane in the last 3-4 years gives me hope that, wow, he's coming back into form. There have been glimmers of hope when he got 100 at Melbourne versus Australia. But apart from that, nothing much.
Daryl, anything on these two?
I thought Rahane, again, there was no foot movement. Perhaps he's intimidated by the bounce and the sideways movement. But he has occupied that position now. And I made the point yesterday, I think he must be on the list. I'm not convinced about Agrawal. The moment the ball's moving, bouncing, he squares up, caught on the crease. Pujara perhaps got one which just got a bit steep on him. But ultimately, I think they're the two. If I was Rahul Dravid, looking at batsmen to play abroad. At home, it's perhaps a different story. But where they are going to expect lateral movement and South African types of pitches. But, how much longer? And I'm sure if he's honest with himself, he might be thinking, look, it's the end of the road in this sort of format. There's some young, exciting talent, which probably now deserves a run. They start off at home, build some confidence there, and then look outside of India.
You make an interesting point, Sanjay, about, it's a shame that he ran out of partners, or no one in the tail was just willing to hang around a little more on a day where we've observed that it's been hard for the top order batters, or at least some of them made it hard for themselves. Can we afford any sort of criticism to the lower order for not hanging around with Pant, like Ashwin, Shardul Thakur, and the bowlers to follow?
Not so much Ashwin, because this is the way Ashwin plays. He sort of just sort of trusts his instincts, and that's how he plays. He plays to the covers a lot and plays some glorious shots. And he got a 40 in the second test match first inning, which is priceless. So this is what Ashwin does. I have a problem with Shami's shot, especially with Pant at the other end. I mean, that was just somebody just trying to, show some bravado. All he had to do was hang in there. He had to play a couple of balls, and he did that magnificently. And with Pant at the other end, with his kind of, the ability that he has, who knows? He would have taken India 30, 40 runs more. Bumrah as well has got caught up in this thing with Janssen and, wants to also show that, I'm not somebody who's scared fast bowling. Perhaps that came into his thinking when he played that shot. I mean, those two shots were like two tail-enders trying to set a target with shortage of time in the test match. And that has to be looked at. And I saw the reaction of Virat Kohli when Bumrah got out. And that reaction was exactly what they're thinking. I mean, just hang in there. Pant at the other end, not out. The other thing that has not come into the spotlight as much is, again, connected with bravado. 179 for 8 South Africa. They added 31 runs after that, because India suddenly, with Rabada there and Janssen and Olivier, decided to bounce these guys, for no reason. I mean, it didn't make any sense at all. This is a low-scoring test match. Get them out quickly. What's the point in trying to show that you're going to intimidate these fast bowlers? How is that going to help you? They added 31 runs, and again, those runs will become crucial in the end. So I think approach-wise, you could say you could fault a few things that the Indian team did.
Daryll?
Yes. Well, when the test series started, Raunak, I don't know if you recall me saying that the runs from the lower order could very well decide the series. But for me, it's inexcusable today that you see guys going and bat like that. You got sidearms, you got batting coaches, you can employ your own coach, you can have your own guys thrown. Surely, just show some balls, show some attitude. No one's expecting you to be a Kohli, but just can you go forward, can you go back? That's all we want from you. But to just go there, have a hit over the top. In South Africa, have been guilty of it in the past as well. It's a point I've raised about them. That's just not on. When I see tailenders running away, you've got all the protection you need. Surely, guys, come on, you can do a lot better than that. You've got so many coaching stuff. What actually happens down at practices? You've got bowling machines. You've got everything available. Be able to just get in line and hang in there. Don't even have to have a shot. Get forward, leave. Invariably down at the tail, they're going to try ball straight and knock you over. So you're not really caught up in where's my off stump or not. But those 20, think of another 20, 30 runs. Huge difference, actually. Not huge, but this could be a deciding difference come tomorrow. So, that goes back to management. I want to say to these coaches, how much time do you spend with these guys? Are you actually there at the nets watching them bat or helping them develop a technique? That can't be that difficult.
And the fact is, they have survived in the past. It's not like they are completely incapable of it. We've seen that with Jasprit Bumrah, even earned himself a promotion of a night watchman in Australia. So he's come out earlier. He's now got a demotion. Shami has a test 50. So there are enough reasons to believe that they can survive, but they didn't today. So you understand the point that Daryl and Sanjay make.
I mean, that's not trying. What we saw there is that's not trying to survive. Big
Absolutely,
pull,
that's the point. That's the point I'm making. That we have seen them do it in the past. So for whatever reason,
we needed to see it today.
It's not like you got Courtney Walsh or Chris Martin or Muralidharan.
I think that they just got caught up. I think all these guys are just getting caught up into this little battle that they are having with individuals on the side. I think more maturity is needed because really, it was just about defending the balls and letting Rishabh Pant do his thing. Shami trying to play a pull like Beverages and Bumrah trying to hit the ball out of the ground. It's ridiculous with Pant at the other end batting on 100.
All right. As it turns out, there was plenty in those dying moments of the day that we can also discuss, which is beyond cricket. So let's quickly get an opinion from Sanjay Manjrekar and Daryll Cullinan on their reaction to Ashwin's LBW review or Dean Elgar's LBW review of Ashwin. We saw what the Indian captain made of it. We even saw what umpire Erasmus made of it. Word going around on social media says he almost said that's impossible, but we can't confirm that. So let's ask Sanjay Manjrekar whether he was surprised at the decision, what he made of the reaction that followed.
First things first, when we saw the replays, thought the ball is going to be hitting the stumps. So I can understand the surprise of Erasmus. You don't, generally review an Erasmus decision. I can also understand the surprise of Erasmus because that looked like the ball was hitting the stump. But that's one thing. And it's not the first time that we've seen this happen. Famously, Tendulkar against Pakistan in that 2011 World Cup at Mohali. It's happened before. What followed after that was pretty serious for me because there was an insinuation from the Indian camp that the host broadcasters were up to some mischief to make sure they were putting their own team at an advantage. And that's a very serious kind of insinuation. So I have a problem with that.
Yeah, would you call it heat of the moment or would you still consider it a serious breach, Daryll Cullinan?
Well, we'll find out. That's the sort of what's going down and being said and being overheard. Then surely the match referee has got his step in. But, this is a typical Virat's untouchable. Virat behaves the way Virat wants to behave when it suits Virat. And the rest of the cricket world just bows down to Virat and says, the powerhouse is India. The powerhouse is India. Players I hate to use the word, but it's just it's been going on for years. It's just a big suck up towards India and anybody who plays for India. And they're untouchable. So, you know what, everyone will laugh it off. I love Virat Kohli. I love his cricket. I love the way he plays. But really, there's got to become a draw line somewhere and say, hang on, you must be severely punished if that's what's going down. I can tell you the host broadcaster, I worked for them for 7 years. There's just absolutely no ways. Absolutely no ways. If anything, it was a mistake. Someone made a mistake. But I just cannot believe that they would think along those sorts of lines. That's just out of line. And that can get him into a lot of trouble. But, you know, for too long, Virat has got away with behavior, which is unacceptable on a cricket field. But he's Virat Kohli, you see. And I don't like it, quite frankly.
All right, we will find out if Andy Pycroft thinks the same way. If he didn't like it, you'd think there'd be some sort of reaction, maybe overnight. We'll hear more. Ashwin had a mouthful to give to the stump mic too. Again, we have to quietly sit in. We have to wait and see exactly what was said. But it did seem like the Indian players were not pleased with the host broadcaster. We leave it there then. It's going to be quite the fiery and feisty end to this test match. Anyone willing to call it? Daryll?
I'm back in South Africa. Yeah, I think they're gonna sneak home. That first hour is gonna tell us everything.
Absolutely, Sanjay.
South African batting lineup can be full of surprises. So don't rule out an Indian win, but South Africa at this stage, even with Elgar gone, maybe slightly ahead.
All right, fair enough. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Always a pleasure listening to the both of you, and we will do that at the end of this test match, which you will in all likelihood now see on the 4th day. None of these tests tend to go the 5 days, even the first one that went because we lost a day to rain. So let's see how this series and this test match eventually unfolds. Join us at the end of it on ESPN Cricket for Match Day.